Welcome, age of vintage society. Even though people remember actor Fred Gwynne as Herman Munster, or it might be as the hilarious judge in My Cousin Vinny, the truth is that from a young age he dreamed of becoming a different kind of artist. Fred Gwynne, best known for his role as Herman Munster in The Munsters, was one of the greatest actors of all time. However, in real life he had also faced severe trials. Why Fred Gwynne was much more than just a human monster. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. The man behind Herman Munster. Fred Gwynne is best known as the amiable Herman Munster in the television series The Munsters. But the long-faced, deep-voiced actor's career spanned more than 40 years. On Broadway he starred in works by Shakespeare, Ionesco, Tennessee Williams and Thornton Wilder, meanwhile playing character parts in film and television. You laughed along with him on Car 54, Where Are You? The towering Fred Gwynne, he stood at 6'5", was a one-of-a-kind talent on television. He led a fascinating life off-screen too, living a quiet life devoted to his other talents. Frederick Hubbard Gwynne was born in New York City on July 10, 1926. His father, Frederick, was a prominent stockbroker. His mother, Dorothy, was a cartoonist. His family moved around a lot because of his father's job. He grew up in Tuxedo Park, New York, but due to the fact that his father's work required extensive travel, he found himself living in South Carolina, Florida and Colorado. It was a good life that came to a sudden end when his father died from what should have been a routine sinus operation. Fred was only 8 years old. In the aftermath, he became more introspective, finding solace in the sketches he was more capable of drawing. He entered prep school at 13 and proved himself highly popular. Despite a 6'6" height that could have easily ostracized him, he sang in the school choir and did extremely well in his art classes, which led him to study a wide variety of artists and styles from different eras. He studied at the Groton School in Massachusetts. He was part of the US Navy during World War II. After that he spent a while at the Phoenix School of Design in New York. He then enrolled at Harvard University. He graduated in 1951. At Harvard, Fred Gwynne was part of the Hasty Pudding theatrical organization. After his graduation, he joined the Brattle Theatre Company. He worked different jobs to support himself, including copywriting. He had his first Broadway success in 1952. He played the role of a gangster in the comedy play Mrs. McThing. His first movie role was an uncredited part opposite Marlon Brando. Gwynne made his film debut in 1954. He had a small role in the crime drama On the Waterfront, starring Marlon Brando. He then appeared in 2 episodes of the sitcom The Phil Silvers Show. In 1961 he got one of the lead roles in the sitcom Car 54, Where Are You? He played a patrolman called Francis Muldoon. The show lasted for 2 years. After that he got the lead part in the comedy show The Munsters. He played Herman Munster, a funny and lovable parody of Frankenstein's monster. It became the most famous role of his career. Fred Gwynne appeared in a few other plays such as Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and Our Town. He also had smaller parts in many films such as Ironweed, Fatal Attraction, Simon and many others. Still, he was best known for his role as Munster. In 1981 he starred in the television film The Munster's Revenge. He eventually gave up on acting. He spent the rest of his career doing voiceovers for television and radio. He had one final film part in 1992. He played a judge in the comedy My Cousin Vinny. He was an illustrator and children's book author. While at Harvard, Fred Gwynne drew cartoons for the Harvard Lampoon. He eventually became the publication's president. He continued drawing and painting during his acting career. Gwynne is a Harvard grad. He studied at the school on the GI Bill. While at Cambridge, he sang in the Capella group, the Harvard Crocodillos, and drew cartoons for the Harvard Lampoon. He put those art skills to good use later in life, writing and illustrating picture books for kids. He wrote and illustrated many children's books, such as The King Who Reigned, A Little Pigeon Toad, and many others. He also held several exhibitions for his artwork. Every time an actor steps on stage or in front of a camera, they're ultimately hoping to make a connection with the audience. When they do, it can be magic. But there's also the risk of that connection being so strong that said audience can't see them as anyone else but that character. Usually there are stages they go through, ranging from flattery to shock to frustration, anger and, ultimately, either acceptance or resignation and resentment. Fred Gwynne unfortunately fell into the latter category. Given the success of his 1961 to 1963 sitcom Car 54 Where Are You, and his varied roles on stage before that, he seemed ready for a diversity in roles, but Herman did him, or leased his career, in. One bright spot of the Munsters, as he related to the New York Times in 1978, is that while he didn't get rich from the show, he did make money from it. I was working for Universal under what they called a minimum residual deal, he said. That means I got paid for the first years of reruns, but that's all. I didn't make money from residuals, but I invested a lot in Xerox while I was doing the show, and I got out of the market at the right time after several stock splits. So in that way the Munsters made me enough money to survive on, which made it an interesting ball game. The money let me pursue what I wanted. Pursuing and achieving are two very different things, as he would come to find out, as it was a dilemma that he was forced to deal with through much of his career. While Fred was building his career, he had married socialite Jean Foxy Reynard in 1952, and together they had 5 children. They were Gaynor, born 1952, Kieran, born 1954, Evan, born 1956, Madin, born 1965, and Dylan, who was born in 1962, but drowned in the family pool a little less than a year later. On top of this, Kieran, at the age of 1, suffered a severe brain injury that left him mentally disabled. One can only imagine the personal pain this must have caused Fred, which could have coloured his personality for the rest of his life. He was often called a curmudgeon by the media. It had such a devastating effect on him, but he kept that very much to himself. When he was acting, he acted, but off-screen he was a bereaved parent. Between all of that and how hard he was finding it to get work, he bought a farmhouse in Maryland and retreated into that very private life. I want to say this nicely, but people who are big fans of any person or show, when they hear that their favourite actor has suffered so much, they feel as though their suffering is more important than anybody else's. Fred always had his feet on the ground. He never used his personal tragedies as fodder for publicity, nor did he want to cry in public over what he was dealing with. He knew that there were tons of other people going through the same things, and he dealt with it privately. He really did not care to share. Although he had a hard time scoring movie and TV roles following the Munsters, Fred found solace in the theatre, starring in a number of regional state productions across the country before making his way back to Broadway in 1974 for a revival of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, followed 2 years later by a Texas trilogy. It's not that he didn't work at all, it's just that there wasn't another high-profile sitcom. What he became was a wonderful, well-paid character actor. He went back to Broadway and was a star there because he could play all kinds of parts. He was Broadway trained and could live quietly working on stage, and then slipping away back to the suburbs to get far away from all of it. That's how he lived his life. Sadly, in the midst of what was a true career renaissance, Fred was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He ended up dying on July 2nd, 1993, only 8 days before he would have turned 67. Fred was an actor who knew how to play comedy with incredible pinpoint, sharp timing. Like Lucille Ball, he knew how to suspend disbelief so that you could completely buy what was going on. For me, The Munsters is a cartoon, only we believe it because Fred believes it. There was a warmth and a heart that came out of him that made what he did believable. For reasons unknown, Gwynne was laid to rest in an unmarked grave at Sandy Mount United Methodist Church in Finksburg, Maryland. In an article in Harvard's The Crimson, his daughter Madeleine Gwynne said, "He was a far more complex character than the one he played on The Munsters." If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about Fred Gwynne's life and legacy? Would you ever have thought that he had so much pain behind the cameras?